We'll image memory and see what you've been doing. Right? And then one of the other things is just kind of consider the footprint, that like the application that you're running and things like that. Kind of quickly, we'll talk about this a little bit, but kind of talking about encryption on systems. You're going to come across encryption at some point, so kind of be aware of it. If you come across encryption, you'll want, I would say always acquire live, because don't assume that you'll get access to it. Even if the suspect says, oh yeah, my password is this, right? Don't assume that's right, because as soon as you power off the system, you've lost access to it. So if you have interactive access to the desktop, and there are mounted containers or mounted disks, I recommend doing it live. And live is the important thing here, right? Because if you shut it down, you've lost access to it. The other thing that I want to point out is that this actually comes up quite a bit, is that when you're doing imaging, people tend to think about the physical disk, like you want to get a physical disk image. If you have interactive access to the desktop, and you have so if your C drive, for example, it's full disk encryption, but your C drive is decrypted, right? Because you're logged in and you've put in the credentials and everything, right? If you go and you actually, if you get access to that system and you go to run FTK Imager or whatever else, and you image physical drive 0, you're imaging the encrypted contents, right? You're not imaging the decrypted contents. You want to image like drive letter C or volume 0 or whatever it is, right? You want to get the volume, not the physical disk in that case, right? So in most cases, when you're doing dead box imaging and stuff like that, you're always going to get the physical disk image, right? But when you're dealing with a live system when you're dealing with encryption, you want to get a volume-based image, right? You can get a physical image too, right? But make sure you get the volume-based image, because that's going to contain the decrypted contents. And the one thing I want to point out is think before you pull the plug, right? Because as soon as you pull the plug from that system, there is no coming back from it, right? You can't go, oh crap, plug it back in. It doesn't work that way, right? So is to keep that in mind, is that before you do it, before you're about to pull it out, think, do I want to do this, right? What did Kevin say? Okay, I'll be with you. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, so you need to kind of be aware of that. There are some tools out there that will do kind of encryption detection. JAD software makes one called EDD, or Encrypted Disk Detector. But then also for all of you, you're all government folks, I think, so you can get this, is the CERT-developed Crypt Hunter, which is basically a command line tool which identifies, using disk signature and things like that, disk signatures will identify mounted encrypted drives, basically, for things like TrueCrypt and BitLocker and so on and so forth. It's not an imaging tool; it's an identification tool, but it'll allow you to basically identify, like, does this have encryption running on the system, or does it have a mounted encrypting container, right? So it can help you to kind of go through that, that process and determine if you want to acquire it live. You can also do things like identify running processes, like is TrueCrypt running? Look in the little tray at the bottom, is TrueCrypt there? Things like that. And then again, kind of think before you pull the plug. And Windows systems, kind of talking about soft. Does anyone have any questions on encryption stuff? There's usually questions on that. But okay. So some of the other things, kind of dealing with software RAIDs. In Windows, they call them dynamic disks, which is just their name for it, I guess. But it's basically a software RAID. There's ways that you can detect it. Most of the way, it's going to actually be looking in through like Windows Disk Management.